So I'm going to ask each of our panelists to just introduce themselves and maybe a minute about your company and what you do there, and then we're going to get right into the moderated panel. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Holmes Glogauer. I work at Sailthru. I've been a recruiter for about 9 years now. I started on the agency side as well, and quickly went over to corporate. Worked at a lot of different places, startups to larger companies like Spotify. I'm back to a smaller company at Sailthru, and I lead technical recruiting there.
So we're going to try to keep this interactive. I believe Jamie sent you some questions. We're probably going to throw them out and come up with some new ones, so I hope you didn't prepare too much. For some of the questions, I'm going to ask an individual member of the panel. For others, I may ask the whole group. So we're going to mix it up. The first question is, and this is a topic that is really kind of fascinating to our team over at Crowded. The majority of the developers tonight and the majority of the developers in the Crowded platform are what we would label between junior and intermediate developers. And one of the issues that we see in the market today, and I think it becomes a difficult pain point for candidates in general, is they may apply for a role that says junior developer, and then it says on the bottom, oh yeah, you need 9 years of experience and a PhD. So that necessarily doesn't make that a junior developer role. So I'd love to start with Natalie. We'll go right down the panel. Just give me a really quick definition of what you consider a junior developer, please.
I would say that junior probably means 0 to 2 years of experience, so people coming right out of academia. And regardless of whether that's undergrad, grad, PhD, I think it kind of all levels out. When you're looking at companies where you're going to go in and have to write production level code, and you haven't done that, you are junior. And I think, okay.
I think that's an interlude for another song. Basically, when the lights go down, we'll sing.
That's kind of my take on it. That's what I've seen at small companies, large companies, kind of across the board as a general rule of thumb for defining junior.
So again, we're going to mix it up a little bit. I may call on one specific panelist, and then again, it's as a conversation. So we encourage you to disagree with each other, or especially you could disagree with me, as everyone else usually does, and then we'll kind of continue from there. So maybe a little bit about what it's like for a candidate. Maybe if you put yourself in the shoes of a junior developer, and what it's like to go through and interview and work for an Amazon versus more of a mid-sized or later stage company that isn't yet public like a Meetup.
You're asking about interview process specifically, or the work?
Maybe the work. Let's talk about the work maybe.
Yeah. So I can speak on that. I think that and very generally speaking, I'm kind of trying to talk in generalities as much as possible, but I think that part of the sell, right, of working at a smaller company is ability to have more impact. So smaller teams, bigger projects, you get to work on a bigger piece of something as opposed to, many more teams working on a larger project or product. So I think definitely, exposure to things, you kind of learn a lot more, I think, because you just inherently have to do a lot more at a smaller company because there aren't as many people. So it's more of an all hands on deck kind of situation as opposed to, the Googles and Facebooks that have thousands of engineers working on things, and maybe you're only working on a small piece of something larger.
So at the last meetup, my question was the opposite of this one, and I don't think Mark liked my last question. I asked for each of our panelists to share, an experience that didn't go well. I basically said that, someone on the intake looked great, they passed, with flying colors a coding challenge, whatever it was, and then within 90 days, I think everyone realized that it wasn't the right hire. So we're going to take it from maybe the more positive side today. So maybe if you could share either a story about maybe a recent hire, or maybe to frame what you'd love to see, again thinking about junior developers, on what sort of a great from sourcing all the way through onboarding experience for you would look like at your company.
I hired a UI engineering manager last year. That role had been open for several months before I started working on it. and ended up hiring a fantastic engineering manager. And just to kind of, I guess, level set, being able to hire junior people, and why my example is not hiring a junior person, it's hiring a manager, because he now gives us bandwidth to be able to hire junior people. We have, really good management in place to be able to do that mentoring, to be able to do that onboarding, so that we can bring in a more diversified, in terms of experience, level of engineers.
If there's any panelists, I won't go in a specific order, that maybe your company looks at boot camp grads, or if you don't, that's perfectly fine too. It'd be great to kind of hear some of the way that you frame that, and maybe either sort of the pro or the con behind it. And again, any order you guys wish.
I can give an example. When I worked at Spotify.
Great.
So during Spotify Hack Week, me and 3 engineering managers decided that we wanted to try to figure out a way to support hiring junior people. We were kind of in this very stagnant place where we were only hiring mid-level to senior level people. No one was considering hiring anyone out of a boot camp or anyone right out of college. So, except for previous interns, we would do that. So we came up with this idea to create an incubator. And basically what it would do is we would have people apply and create kind of a simulated sprint team, right? So we would have anywhere between 8 and 10 people come in for a 16-week program where they would have agile coaches, they would be mentored, they would work on real stuff, and have to produce something by the end of that. You weren't necessarily hired at the end of it, but you had a lot greater of a chance of being then hired full-time by Spotify and getting placed on one of our production teams. So that was one way that we kind of created a workaround for it, because we saw there was a huge problem with trying to bring people in who were making career pivots and doing all of this work to try to become software engineers and creating places for them.
So, a red flag, what's the one thing that everyone in this room should not say to you on the phone or an email? And it could be a very specific thing that kind of blew up a process that was actually looking pretty good to start, or something a little bit more general.
I can think of 2.
Two's good.
Put me on the spot. I can think of one that's a red flag for me, and one that's a red flag for engineering managers that I work with. So for me, I can think of I always like to find out why people are interested in talking to me. What is it about my company? What is it about the job? Did you just randomly apply? It tells me a lot about, your general interest and enthusiasm. And I like to know the story of, why are you leaving if you're leaving someplace? What is that story? Big red flag if it's super negative in an interview. If you're bad-mouthing your company, if it's like, this is the worst place, they just suck, everything was the worst, my manager was horrible, and that's like the worst thing you can say in an interview. I mean, even if that was the case, lie. Like, lie to a recruiter. Like, in an interview, lie. Like, I mean, not lie, but you know what I mean? You can't be so honest about it, right? You want to try to make it sound, it wasn't a good culture fit for me, or, there's ways that you can kind of soften it a little bit, so that it's not such a negative. That's a red flag for me. And then I think as far as engineering managers go, I would say, I forgot what I had a point and I forgot it. I think I don't know. Yeah. My point was lie. It wasn't lie. Don't take that away.
Don't get caught lying.
I didn't That's
the other one. Don't get caught lying on the interview.
Soften the truth is what I mean to say.
Be a good liar. What were we saying?
Don't be a good liar. That's
diplomatic. Be diplomatic.
I didn't say it.
Let's start over here.
Yeah. I thought of mine.
Go for it.
Engineering red flag. In an interview process with an engineer, always be flexible. sometimes you are not right. Sometimes you are going down the wrong path, and an engineer might be trying to give you hints. Take those hints. It is a red flag if you are not willing to take feedback in an interview. I've seen it time and time again where they've said, yeah, I was trying to redirect to this person and they were just so, inflexible and wanted to go the way that they were going because they thought they were right. And that ended up resulting in not hiring the person because they thought, well, we can't work with someone like that. We can't work with someone who's not willing to say they're wrong. So that was one.
Just real quick, where is the coding challenge in your process in like one sentence so Joe doesn't yell at me?
We just got rid of ours, so we no longer do coding challenges. We found that, yay.
Yeah, I gotta
Yeah, we just got rid of it. We're trying to do our interview process without the coding challenge, so we'll see how that goes, but it just didn't seem like it felt like we were losing candidates because they didn't want to complete the coding challenge, and we assume that they're interviewing everywhere, so we have to compete. It enables us to move faster without doing it also, so yeah, we just started it.